I'm Dr. Bart Rademacher. This is Prescription for Your Transformation, real people, real conversations, and real success, bringing to you the talents from all over the world so that you can dive into their genius and transform your life, because this is what it's really all about, is discovering those gems that are out there that just click with what it is that you're wanting to achieve in your life. And therefore now you've got the light shining on your path forward, and it gets really exciting. So for me, it's always exciting to meet all these incredible people, and today is no exception. I just came back from a biohacking conference with Dave Asprey out in Orlando. Some really cool stuff, and I'm looking forward to having some more really cool interviews, starting off with this one today. And I'm delighted to bring to you a master in the teaching of how it is that we can actually connect the mind and the body. We all talk about the mind and the body, and we all talk about it as if we know what we're really talking about, right? But here's a guy that really knows. And I'm going to share your story, about his life, kind of sort of at the end of this interview, or part 3 of this interview. Actually, we're going to have 3 parts to this. And so that you can discover, the essence of what it takes to have this kind of balance in life. Eduardo, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's my pleasure, Bart. Really, really, I'm very happy to be with you and with your audience, and it's an honor.
Yeah, I was really excited to have you join us at our table the other day, and just started talking, and then I discovered what you did, and then discovered the amazing story that you have. And I really want to dive into that, because I think it's a story of people's lives and their journey that really makes a difference. But there's 3 parts to this, and today is about possibility, opening the world of possibility, especially when we think that it's not possible. And I'm always that possible kind of guy. But the other one that I'm really going to geek out, and that's going to be part 2, is something that you shared with me earlier, and that is, having a clear intention, of what it is that you want, having that clarity. It's always about clarity, but a key thing that I very seldom hear about, and I'm excited to hear your perspective on it, but it's about the attachment. And then in part 3 is your story, and your story as teaching martial arts at the age of 16. I mean, how cool is that? So let's dive into possibility. That's the first thing that you wanted to talk about. So tell me your perspective, and what is it that you actually teach your students when it's about possibility?
Well, I think I had to become a fighter from a very early age. Since I was 2, I basically faced the possibility of dying very, very closely. And my parents tell me that I was born healthy. I was a very happy kid. I would go out. We had a big garden back in Mexico, and I loved it when it was time to water the grass and the flowers, and they had the systems that will just spray the water. Now we'll go out to my garden and play under the water, and life was beautiful. And even though it's a little strange, but I remember many of those moments and feelings very, very clearly in my head and in my heart. But when I was 2, we made a trip to Acapulco, and it seems like all my siblings and we got a bacterial infection, and I was the only child out of we're 5 siblings, and the other 4 are much older than I am, and I was the only one that was not breastfed. And my mom always regretted that. She felt guilty her entire life. But back then, doctors were recommending mothers not to breastfeed their babies. So she did what she was told, and apparently that really charged a big quote in my process. So basically, at age 2, I got an infection that made it very, very bad for me, my lungs, my respiratory tract, and it brought me close to death. Not only once, but many times for the following years. I was treated with very large doses of antibiotics and other medication, and that kind of controlled the situation. But I never stopped really being sick until maybe when I was 7. We found a doctor who diminished the amount of medication, and he treated me with other kind of stuff, like he would do very harsh cleaning of my whole sinuses and all my, yeah, like he told my mom once, you're going to wrap the kid in a towel. You're going to put his arms like this, you're going to wrap him in a towel, and you're going to inject through his nose warm water with a mix of different things, and he's going to yell, he's going to scream, he's going to cry, he's going to try to hit you, pull your hair. He's going to suffer, but trust me, it's better than giving him so much medication. We need to really bring this lower. So my mom always told the story that first time she wrapped me in the towel, and when she did the first shot, I didn't even fight. I was so relieved. I mean, it felt like hell, but it really brought a kind of relief that I didn't feel for years. So the second time she did, and she didn't have to wrap me. I was completely, please, mom, do it, you know? So that's how the story began. And so I had to start getting a lot of control over my body just because of that. And another way I tried to compensate for everything that was happening to me was I had to become tough. So my father put me into American football, which he played when he was younger, and my brother played. And so it was kind of the family sport, although I was in Mexico. And I started very, very young, and it really helped me to shape my character. I love the sport. I respect the sport so much. It gave me some of the best moments of my childhood, which were always a struggle, because although after 7 years old, I had a normal childhood, to say it in a way, I was always struggling with infections, and I was always getting antibiotics anyway, just in smaller doses. Eventually, I was diagnosed with rheumatic fever, and I just kept getting shots of penicillin and large doses of vitamin D, which was also shots, and other stuff. So I kind of learned to live that way, and I started training martial arts more or less at the same time, 7, 8 years old. And I loved it. I just loved the possibility of being in a certain level of control over my body. And so the feeling that gave me made me go as deep as I could into both American football and martial arts. And I did a lot of meditation as well, very intuitively, because I never received formal training until probably when I was 13 or 14. But yet I did something that I needed my time, I needed my silence, I needed my moments to observe and contemplate, and that made a huge difference for me. And well, eventually, when I was 16, my bedroom was my temple, and I always went there barefoot. And I asked everyone in my house to please take their shoes off before going into my bedroom, because that was my place for meditation, and it was sacred for me. So my mom, I lived with my mom at that time, and she was very respectful. Usually, she was always supportive, and she was a wonderful, wonderful woman, my best friend. But one day she was in a bad mood. She was in a rush, and she rushed into my bedroom wearing shoes, and she opened the closet to look for something. She kept some of her stuff in my closet, so she went inside, and I was like, "Mom, you didn't take your shoes off." And I caught her in a bad moment, and she just blew up, and she said, "This is my home, and I do whatever I want in my home, so don't bother me with that anymore." And I was an adolescent, and I could have fought back, asking for my rights and making it a huge deal. But in that moment, I just thought to myself, she's completely right. She's absolutely right. How can I demand from her to take her shoes off in her own
Right.
home? But it's clear for me that I need my own place. I need my place where things can be the way I feel they have to be, where I can just meditate without being afraid that someone is going to rush into my place and completely disrupt me. And so that day, and not the next day, that day I started working. And I started working towards having my own place. And I remember I went out of my bedroom, and it was at dinner time. And my younger sister was there. She's 8 years older than I am, but she's the youngest one after me. And I told my mom and I told my sister, I'm gonna start working today. And they my sister laughed at me, and she said, "What are you gonna do?" Because in Mexico, usually men leave their house when they get married at 27, 30. That's just the tradition. But I was 16, and I said, I'm working today because I need my place. I need my temple. I need my sacred space. And my mom just got quiet. My sister laughed at me. But I started working, and 2.5 years later, I had my own place, and that's when things started getting really intense, and I started teaching martial arts. At the time, that was part of the things that I started doing when I started working. And I had many students that I loved very much. I started with a group of children, my nephew being one of them. And some of them were 5, some of them were 6. And I also had groups of adults and different ages, different kinds of groups, people from the university and the school where I was at.
Right.
And one of the toughest things was when I started having more health issues, more or less when I was 21. Everything started getting out of control. Like I became used to living with just falling sick every now and then and getting the shots and the antibiotics and everything 3-4 times a year, and that was kind of normal for me. But my skin started breaking out really badly. I started losing a lot of weight. I started feeling like absolutely weak, helpless, exhausted all the time. Like no matter what I did, no matter how much I rested, I was finding it harder and harder to move. And I could clearly feel weakness inside of my body. I could feel it in my bones. I could feel it in my joints, but also pain, inflammation. I could feel it in my organs because I always did so much work with my body. And until eventually I had to speak with my students and tell them I cannot train you anymore. There's no way. I cannot keep going. And by that time, some of them were already taller than I was. Some of the 5-year-olds that started training with me back when I was 16, 17, now they were taller than I was. And I was a big part of their life, and they were a big part of mine. But it was clear to me that things were getting out of control, and conventional medicine was not helping it anymore. Like I will say that I had very good doctors in my path. It was a 20-year struggle in which I gave the responsibility of my healing to the experts, to the doctors, the specialists. I was lucky to be able to be treated by many very good and prestigious doctors. And some of them did help me. None of them was able to make me into a completely healthy person, but I was functional for many years, and I'm always grateful for that. But at the same rate, I was a victim of medical negligence and medical abuse many times. And the last time was just really confronting. And I had been over a year with a doctor who was giving me immunotherapy, and he caused very serious allergies that I never suffered from. So besides everything I was already going through, now this made my life a living hell. And when I confronted him and I told him eventually after a year, I used to see him twice a week.
Right.
So we became kind of peers in the process. And one day I told him, please tell me the truth, because none of what is happening is what you told me was going to happen. It doesn't make sense. I'm getting worse and worse instead of feeling even a little better. So please tell me, be honest with me, tell me what's going on. So he pulled a book from behind him and he showed the book to me, and it seems like he had everything ready when this talk finally was to happen. And he showed me the paragraph in which it said that only 1 out of 10,000 people who went into the protocol that he put me under would have a reaction like the one I did. So he said, this happens, it's not my fault. You have bad luck, and there's nothing else I can do. So basically, he just told me I had bad luck, and he didn't.
How did that make you feel? I mean,
well, the way it made me feel, and I've said it before, if I would have the strength to jump on him and hit him in the face, I would have done it. But I was feeling so weak that I just felt betrayed. I felt stupid. I felt terrible. And I went back home, and I remember this day like if it was yesterday. And I remember exactly the place where I sat down back in my place, and in complete silence, I just reflected on everything that had happened for the last 20 years. And I realized I made an essential mistake. And that mistake was I always made the doctors responsible. I never took the responsibility myself. I realized that I was bringing my body to the doctor the same way I was bringing my car to the shop. So here's my broken body, fix it and I'm gonna pay you. And that day, I made what was probably the most important decision in my healing process, which was never again. Healing is a responsibility that can only be mine. And I didn't know where to start. I didn't know how to actually start being responsible of my healing, of the possibility of my healing, of whatever could happen. But it was just so clear that I'm not.
So what happened next?
I had a Catholic education when I was very young, and that in that moment something jumped into my mind, and I remember that. Of course, everybody has heard that Jesus Christ used to heal the ill, the sick people, but I realized something I heard hundreds of times, and I read dozens of times, and I noticed something that I never noticed before. So yes, Jesus Christ used to heal, and the Bible mentions it in two different ways. One way is like that, like Jesus used to heal, and they tell the story, and that's that. But in other parts of the Bible, they actually quote Jesus about him healing. And every time they quote Jesus about him healing somebody else, he would always say, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. And just that, yes, the Bible said, it wasn't me, it was you through your faith. But in that moment, my faith was broken. For a Catholic, I was very, very deep into Catholicism when I was very young. And for me, it was very hard to accept that my faith had broken after so many years of really trying to do everything right and everything going wrong. Right. But I had to accept and be honest. And I said, okay, my faith is broken, but the responsibility is mine. It's not him, it's not the doctor, it's not my parents, it's not the world, it's me. So what do I do? So the first thing I thought about doing was study medicine. So I signed up to study the career of medical doctor, and it was a huge deal. But eventually I was accepted, and the first day of classes, the first day came, and that day I was getting ready to go to school, first day to go to the university, and I was feeling weak, I was feeling terrible, and something just clicked into my mind, and I realized, I'm going to start studying a career that my doctors studied many years ago, and they have so much experience, and they have no idea how to really get me out of this one. It's not the logical thing to do. I'm going to have the same resources they have and the same limitations they have. So I have to look elsewhere. And it was very clear to me as time progressed, and the whole thing was getting worse and worse. It was becoming very clear to me that my physical health, the level of vitality I would experience every day, had a lot to do with my emotional life, with my emotional state, and my thoughts. Because I got to a point in which my doctors didn't really know what was happening. I didn't know what was happening. So I started observing everything. And I guess not a little, but maybe super obsessive. So I started observing things like what side of the bed I slept on, what side of my body, or if it was on my back or on my stomach, what I had for food in the morning, in the afternoon, at night, how much water I drank, how was the weather that day. I started trying to find a pattern of why I had days in which I could function, maybe not 100%, but I could function. I could even do some sports. And there were days in which I couldn't really even move. So what happened was that through that path, I met some doctors who were PhDs, medical doctors, scientists. I'm very skeptical, and I was trained. My family is lawyers and businessmen and doctors, and so it was hard for me to open my mind to anything else. And so every time I approached someone with other options, I wanted to make sure he was a medical doctor first. And I started working with people who, besides being medical doctors and had PhDs of things that I could understand and trust, they also had other specialties like homeopathy and acupuncture and kinesiology and different kinds of things. So that led me to travel to the United States and get different kinds of treatments, study different things, because now I was responsible. So now it was not only about bringing my body to the expert, but it was about becoming an expert as much as I could with that doctor, and researching and making sure that anything I would put into my body, I was fully aware of the good things that it could bring and the bad things that it could bring. And so I started a path in which I learned a lot about health, about different options. I ended up helping some doctors train other doctors in some of those things, until eventually a research group from Europe learned about my case. And they told me, Eduardo, we want you to come to Europe because you're a very interesting subject. We're not going to lie to you. We don't promise that we can help you, but we are fascinated by your story because you're very peculiar. You have not responded well to absolutely anything. And we know everything you've tried. So we want to bring you to Europe and go deep into your case and try to find out what it is that's happening. And they worked with biological medicine from Germany and different tools. So what they explained to me was kind of interesting and appealing, and I decided to come to Europe. They paid for most of my treatments and analysis and everything. And after a few months of a lot of tests and trying many different things with me, they said, well, Eduardo, your liver is completely shut down. You know, it's really almost clinically dead. You have problems in your heart. You have problems in your kidneys, in your adrenals. You have problems in your bones, in your lungs, in your blood, and there's nothing really much we can do. So I remember when they told me all that, they said some of the damage was caused by the rheumatic fever itself, but most of the damage probably was caused by so many years of taking such large doses of medication. Right. So I remember asking them, well, can I get a transplant? And they said, no, you're not a subject. You're not a candidate. You have so many things wrong in your body that it doesn't make you a candidate for a transplant. And we're sorry. We've only had a case similar to yours. It wasn't nearly as bad. And she didn't make it. She didn't survive for over a year. So we really think that you have to speak with your parents and you have to make the best out of whatever is left. And that was a life changer. That was a moment in which what I was feeling was confirmed. It didn't come as a surprise because I was 28 at that time and I was absolutely exhausted. I was absolutely exhausted. Not only did I feel terrible physically and in pain, and I had weeks upon weeks in which I found it so hard to even just go to the bathroom. Like I would spend most of the day on the bed, and sometimes I will have to drag myself to the bathroom, not even get up, just crawl there.
So what did you do? When was the time that you made that decision to change your life?
Well, I think that the moment in which I took responsibility, that was the decision that changed my life. That's when I started researching in the right way and exploring different options. And although many of them didn't work, at least I was always responsible. So when this news came, I made another bunch of decisions, which were also part of my healing, I think. And the first decision I made was, I'm not going to obsess about death. You know, I'm not going to think about death while I'm alive, because right now it's about being alive. And we don't really know what that is until we experience it. And that maybe because we don't really know if there's a consciousness, if there's not a consciousness. If we want to be really objective, we don't really know what happens. So I'm not going to waste the last moments of life that I have left thinking about something that's coming anyway. So that was a major decision, because when the news came, you know, it's always tempting to start just getting in there, even before time. So I decided to make the best out of my life while I was still alive. And that brought me to the second decision, because I had to have really, really clear what being alive was for me. Because that's the moment in which you think, okay, I'm going to spend the last of what I've left in just traveling around or doing the things that I never dared to do, and maybe they're not the most healthy, but I you know, I'm leaving anyway. So
how old were you then?
I was 28.
Okay.
I was 28, and so in that moment I realized that nothing ever made me feel more alive than the moments in which it was clear to me that I was growing my consciousness, growing my understanding, growing my forgiveness, growing my gratitude, growing my ability to be of service in any way I could. So I decided that whatever I had left, I would devote whatever I had left to growing in any way I could.
Right.
So first thing I did was I started writing letters. I started writing letters to every person that was meaningful in my life. Some of those letters I knew that they would never get. Some of those letters were for my parents, and I knew they would get them. I never sent them. I just had them ready for when the moment came to make it as little as less painful as possible. So, but just writing those letters, that was such a big thing, because when I wrote those letters, I realized that it was all about gratitude. I had nothing uh, I had nothing to demand from anyone. I had nothing to be upset about with anyone. Like, every person is different. Every person does the best they can, and every person brought so many things, beautiful things, wonderful things to my life. And I didn't write one sentence of you didn't do that, and the
All
day you did this,
gratitude,
you
right?
hurt me. That had no value whatsoever. So that was very healing in itself. And once I had all the letters ready and everything, then I started uh, having moments in which I thought that was the last moment. Like, my heart had really bad rhythm. It had a lot of arrhythmias, and I could feel it suddenly just going boom, like it stopped working. And so many times I thought, this is it. I'm going. Something interesting that a lot of people ask me is, were you afraid? And I have to be honest, I wasn't. I mean, a little, I'm not gonna lie, a little, yes, but fear was not an important emotion I was dealing with. I was ready. I was very grateful. I realized that I was 28 years old. My first sister, she died in the moment of birth. My very first sister, she didn't live for more than a few seconds. And I remember the first time I heard that story, I was a kid. My mom was always very open about these things. And she told me that story, her first child, she lost her in childbirth. So in that moment, I was, I had 28 years. It's probably not as much as everybody thought I would get, but 28 years is a good amount of years. And I got to live wonderful things, and I got to see so many beautiful places and met so many wonderful people, and I got to love, and I got to laugh, and I got to do so many great things. So, if it's time to leave, it's okay.
And then what happened?
It's okay. And then what happened was that I was going through this process, and I was doing my thing, living in peace, and just being ready for the moment, learning to appreciate every little thing that came into my life, every smell, every flavor, every moment. I had the privilege to hear my parents' voices over the phone, because I couldn't live in Mexico City. I had to live at sea level and take very good care of my diet and the air I breathed, and the temperature. My body didn't really produce any heat, so I couldn't be in any cold place or anything. That was absolutely painful for me. So I was enjoying life in a way that I never enjoyed before. Like, all through my life, I always felt I had to accomplish so many things in order to experience true fulfillment. And one day I realized I was so fulfilled, and it was so ironical, because I was in a terrible health situation, the worst I ever had. I was broke financially. Like, I had to sell my house, everything I worked for since I was 16. I lost it. I had to sell everything and use the money to pay my trips, my treatments, my medication. So I was broke financially, and I was far away from my family. So that equation doesn't add up to being really happy or fulfilled. Yet I was.
Right.
We always think that in order to be happy, you need to be healthy, and if you have loads of money, then life is so much better. And if you are near the most important sources of love in your life, that's also so important. And yes, all those things are important, but I realized that they were not nearly as important as being able to truly appreciate whatever it is that you have. So it's
When,
not about how much you have.
and when you finally discovered that, right? Because I know there's another part of the story where you actually did go to China. When did
Yeah.
that happen?
Well, I was exactly in that process. I was exactly in the process of blowing my mind by saying, man, I always thought I had to achieve so much in order to experience this. And now I can barely move. I'm in pain. I'm far away from everyone. I'm broke. I'm living in a little rooftop of a poor house in a poor town in the Yucatan Peninsula. I have nothing. And I'm so freaking happy and so grateful. I'm so enjoying every single day and so ready for the moment comes, for whenever the moment comes. And that, now I understand how that process worked, but at that time I didn't. So what happened in that moment is one of my doctors from Holland, who had tried many things for years, many things he always said were wonderful to achieve some level of healing, and nothing worked. Nothing ever worked. He contacted me and he said, you know, I was invited to China, to the world's largest medicine-free hospital. And I saw the most amazing thing I ever seen in my life. The things I saw in that place, they really, really blew my mind. They use no drugs, they use no needles, no herbs, no special diets. The only thing they do is a very small number of very simple exercises anybody can practice, even old people, exercises with their body and their mind. And I saw with my very eyes people healing from all kinds of diseases. And there's loads of scientific research being made. And I think you should try it. And, you know, when I received those news, I was like, no, I'm not going to try it. I was so tired. I was so ready. I was in such a good place, even though things were the way they were,
Right.
that I wasn't interested. And I thought to myself, you know, he's told me great things about other options before, and none of them worked. Why would this one? So I didn't pay attention. He sent me a video that I didn't watch for months, until one day, just out of curiosity, popped it into the video camera. I had a video camera with a screen on it. And when I saw the exercises, I felt insulted. When I saw the exercises, they were so simple that I thought to myself, so this guy, this doctor who knows me, who I think is my friend and respects me as a thinking human being, in what concept does he really have me in order to think that I'm going to believe that by doing these stupid exercises, I'm going to achieve what I haven't achieved in almost 3 decades with surgery and all kinds of medication and this and that. So I remember I turned off the video and I felt like I had lost a friend. I was like, this is insulting, really insulting. Until one day, I just decided to try it. You know, I was like, oh, I'm going to give it a shot and I'm going to do the exercises. And I did a 15-minute method. It's a method of very simple movements, just like this, just like this. And after 15 minutes, my body started reacting in ways that were not nice. I started feeling very, very sick. I didn't feel better. All the contrary, I really felt really bad. But it was shocking to see that maybe those simple exercises were causing my body to react in such tangible, drastic ways. So the first time I was like, you know, maybe it wasn't the exercises. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Like I said, I have a very scientific mind, and I don't. It's not easy for me to consider these things. So I tried it the next day, and the next day happened the same thing, and the next day happened the same thing, until it was very clear that the moment I started doing the exercises, something was happening with my body, and he was reacting in more tangible ways than it ever reacted to anything else. Even though they were not nice, I wasn't feeling better. They made me curious enough to decide to go to China and research myself, try to find out what was really happening and how much really people heal, whether my doctor was exaggerating or he was being objective. And so I traveled to China in 1999. I was 29 by then. And I couldn't travel to the hospital. I tried to get into the hospital where my doctor from Holland was invited, but the hospital was closed at that time. They closed it during the winter. And so I was invited to come to the foot of China's most sacred mountain, which is called Taishan. It's in Shandong province. China has 5 sacred mountains, and Taishan is the most sacred one of them. And I was very lucky to be invited by Master Wang Laoshi. She's an amazing woman. And she learned about my case through my phone calls. I made hundreds of phone calls. And eventually she learned about me. She didn't know the details. She didn't know what was happening with me. All she knew is that I was sick and I wanted to come to China and learn the real thing. Because I met a lot of people in the path, in the process, who were saying they could teach me, but I really wanted to learn the real thing. I wanted to be in the hospital. And since I couldn't go to the hospital, I said, I'm not going to go to China. But this woman, she was the head grandmaster of the community of practitioners at the foot of China's most sacred mountain. So it felt more trustworthy. And I decided to give it a shot, and I traveled. I arrived at the end of the fall of 1999, and I started receiving a very special training. Master Wang decided to be my personal master. She decided to observe everything that was going on with me. I had a personal translator, and I had 2 teachers in charge of training me. Right. But Master Wang was supervising every step. She was supervising, she was deciding.
So Eduardo, yeah. I know we've been talking for, this story is really compelling. And you know, what I'm getting from this, and what I want the audience to get as well, is that, you know, here is someone that really had no reason to be alive today, for all sorts of reasons. However you want to discuss it, analyze it, slice it, you know, and your story is really compelling. And what I'm actually really totally getting out of this is your resilience. And that was a choice, as much as it may have been an unconscious choice. You know, it was a choice, even at the age of 2 years old. You know, so your story is so compelling that totally brought you to China at the age of 29 to totally revolutionize and transform your life. We only have about 12 minutes left on this interview. And so what I want you to share with the people, because your story is so compelling, which should inspire others, that maybe they don't have it so hard. But I want to hear from you the lessons that you learned that you are now also teaching your students. You know, we talked about possibility. You know, for me, I like to translate gratitude in the form of, gratitude is saying yes to the universe. It's saying yes to possibility. You know, when you're grateful, you're not missing out on anything. You've got everything there. And it's that energy that you emit, also the universe really responds. But the other thing that I also really want to tap into, because I think this is important, and as a coach myself, and helping so many people with their own personal transformation, the first hurdle is getting clarity. And it's crazy, because most people want to have these big ideas, but they lack clarity. And then, so I like what you're saying about the clarity of intention, which is key. But the one thing that I very seldom hear from others is the attachment or unattachment.
Yes.
And so I want to hear from you right now, as we're kind of wrapping up. We only have about 12, now it's only about 11 minutes. Sure. Talking about possibility, number one. So a couple of minutes on that, but then let's talk about clarity and intention, and then as well as attachment. I think these
absolutely. Well, okay, we're human beings, we're creative beings. We are a way in which the universe gets to know itself, Carl Sagan used to say. And I say that sentence, as beautiful as it is, and as much as I admire Carl Sagan, I think he cut short in that one. I believe that we are a way in which the universe also transforms itself and it evolves. So we're creative beings, and we are all about uh, creating possibilities and exploring new possibilities and making the impossible possible until eventually is even normal. With things that seem to be impossible 20 years ago, today they are normal. No, so
So do you know the origin of the term lunatics?
no.
So you know what a lunatic is, right? Lunatics is the synonym for being crazy or insane.
Oh, thinking we can get to the moon.
So there were people that, I think it was in the 1800s, maybe early 1900s, I don't know.
Yeah,
They all believed that they all had dreams and ambitions to go to the moon. They were called
exactly.
lunatics.
Exactly. So where I'm trying to get to is we're all about creating. We're all about changing the odds. We're all about going against the odds in so many ways. And Qigong, what I learned in China, is about that. It's about making the impossible possible. It's the science behind the miracles in a way. Like this hospital in China, it was called by my doctor in Europe and many other Europeans that learned about this place and people from the first world. They called it the miracle hospital, the hospital of miracles, because so many impressive things were happening there. So as much as it is about achieving the impossible and allowing us to take an active role as co-creators of our own reality, it's also about helping us remember that, yes, we're co-creators, but we are not omnipotent. We can have a very significant effect on the way things go, on the things that happen, but we're nowhere near to being in control over everything. So there are still things that are going to go their way, and there are things that we can help go our way. And when you understand and you're humble enough and realistic enough, like we've heard millions of times, the truth will set you free. And practicing this form of Qigong, the one that was used as the only tool in the world's largest medicine-free hospital, is not about being optimistic. It's not about thinking positive. It's about being realistic, about seeing things the way they really are. The more clear you see things, the more objective you are, the more free you become. So when you're faced with any kind of situation, if you can look at the worst case scenario objectively and realize it is possible, it is there, it can happen, and you prepare for that, like you become you get in harmony with that possibility, you take the charge out of it, you completely take the energy away from it. Then you can look at the best case scenario, the best possibility, and you also accept it, and you also get in harmony with that possibility. Now you can work towards achieving that without the fear of the worst happening, because you were able to look at fear right into the eyes. And the best example I can give you was my own healing. So when I went to China, I can tell this with absolute honesty. I didn't go to China thinking I was going to heal. Mm-hmm. That was not even a possibility. I went to China. You spoke about clarity. My only intention was grow. Life was about growing. And I was going to grow by going to China, even if it was only to find out that it was a big charade, that none of this was real, and my doctor from Holland was exaggerating, and that was there was growth in that answer, that was truth. So I was ready to embrace it. But there was also the possibility that he was not exaggerating. That could also be true.
Right.
And it would be a beautiful truth. Although I have to say, even in that case, I thought it would not work for me, because many of the things I tried before, I saw them working for other people, but not for me. So my healing was out of the equation. Yet, when you practice Qin and Qigong, when you get the formal training and you learn to start doing the exercises, teachers tell you, now you have to have the clear intention to heal. Your intention is to be healthy. It doesn't matter if you believe it or if you don't believe it. Because I would tell them, I don't believe it. I've been sick for almost all my life. And I'm dying. What are you talking about?
So you have to believe in the intention. You have to want the intention.
Don't worry about it. Don't think too much. Just, you have to have the intention of being healthy and bring yourself to think that you're healthy as much as you can. Right. Don't worry if you do a great job or what you think is a bad job. Just think about it. And I will be there just thinking about it. And how do you think of a healthy liver? My God, what the hell is that? How does that feel like? How does that look like? I had no point of reference. So I would just look at other people who were energetic and looked happy. And
so let's finish up, because we're almost done on time. We got like 3 minutes left. What do you tell people to do right now? So anybody who's listening to your journey right now, what is their next step? Is it doing Qigong? Is it finding people to do Qigong? Is it finding you, doing your course? What is that step? And we've got about 2 minutes that you can share.
Yes, Bart. Well, yeah, the thing is, when you practice without the attachment to the result, you have the clear intention, you let things flow. And I became very good at that. So 5 months later, I was healthy for the first time of my life.
How do you stay unattached?
Well, I had accepted that. Remember, I had accepted it, and part of me was even curious about it. Not that I wanted it to come, but I was, it's something we're all going to go through. It doesn't have to be bad. There was part of me that was so ready that I learned to see it as a journey that we're all going to embark on. And I thought to myself, okay, something new comes. I don't know what it is.
Were you accepting death, but still fearful of it? Or were you accepting the possibility of death, but still kind of feared dying or feared not living?
I was not afraid of dying. There was probably a little fear of the unknown, but at the same time, I've always felt life is so good. The universe is so good. Why would that be bad if it's something we're all going to go through? So there was no charge there. There was no attachment to living because I was ready for dying. So that's what happened. So eventually, the master in China gave me a training that she was very, she insisted a lot that they never train anyone the way they train me. And she asked me to bring this knowledge to the world.
Wonderful.
So that was back in year 2000. And when, after 5 months, I was completely healthy for the first time in my life, I decided to share this knowledge with as many people as I could in the best possible way that I could. And that's what I've been doing for the last 21 years. Wonderful. And I've been completely healthy for 21 years. I met the love of my life. I am a father of a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, and supposedly I was not able to have kids and
breastfed, right?
Yeah. So that's my mission, just sharing this knowledge with the rest of the world.
So how do people find you?
I have a website. It has my name. It's Eduardo Osegueda.com, and they can find all the information there. And I have the training online, and yeah, people can learn everything that really allowed me to recover my health. I can teach them. I've been doing so for 21 years. I have over 23,000 students, and uh, countless success stories.
Well, Eduardo, thank you so much. This is such a compelling story.
Thank you, Bart.
I love to hear the stories because I think it's something that's so relatable. And so when people just listen to your story, they know what's possible. You know, the Eastern philosophy, the Eastern medicine is incredibly powerful. There are so many incredible resources there for people. And certainly I embrace those. You know, traditional medicine has its place today. It doesn't necessarily have all the answers. I know that for sure. I've been a surgeon for a long time and I know where it works and when it doesn't. And I'm
Yeah.
so honored to be talking to you. And you've gone through this journey. You survived this journey. You're testament to the power of Eastern medicine as well. Eduardo, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Bart. Thank to you. And yes, you're right. I have many students and friends who are doctors, and thank God for medical sciences. It all adds up, you know. It all comes together in a beautiful synergy when the patient takes responsibility. Then the help of the doctors of the treatments even become much more effective as well.
And the key point there is taking responsibility, and
Yeah.
many people are abdicating that role. Well, anyhow, Eduardo, thank you so much. I am Dr. Bart Rademacher, and this is Prescription for Your Transformation. Real people, real conversations, and real success, tapping into your authentic genius so that you can live the life that you desire. It is up to you. It is entirely up to you. You know, nothing is random in this universe. There's an intelligence in this universe. All you have to do is tap into it. Thank you, and I'll be back.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Dr. Rademacher's Prescription for Your Transformation. Continue the path towards discovering your own authentic genius by tuning in next time for more real conversations with real people.